76, 76.
Hello and welcome along to episode 17 of the Tennis Asia podcast. And what was so bright just a few days ago, all lies in ruins now. We talk Tennis Asia disasters at the WTA in Beijing, the ATP in Shanghai. We even find time to talk about disasters at the ITF in Rancho Santa Fe. Before looking ahead to this week's Hangzhou Challenger and the WTA in Wuhan, and here to survey the wreckage is Mr. Tennis Asia himself, Eddie McGee. Eddie, how are you?
I'm good. It's only been a few days since we recorded the last one, but we've got even more to talk about. I think disaster is maybe a bit of a strong word for some of the things that have
Catastrophe,
happened.
calamity.
Yeah, but in varying degrees, let's say. But yeah.
Okay, let's start at the top. We when we left her last week at the China Open, the WTA China Open in Beijing, Olympic champion Zheng Qinwen, because we must always preface her name now with Olympic champion. She was through to the quarterfinals where she was preparing to face Mirra Andreeva, and it was a tough match. She lost the first set.
Yes. So yeah, up against the 17-year-old Mirra Andreeva, who is obviously exceptionally talented for her age. I mean, the fact that she's even made a quarterfinal here, yeah, I mean, she's already shown how good she is. But yeah, it didn't start well for Qinwen because she actually went down for love in that first set. And it seemed like perhaps she was a bit nervy because it wasn't like, Mirra had actually had to do too much to get into that position. But suddenly, yeah, it started to click into gear for Zhang, and she actually brought it back to all square on serve, and then actually broke and was ready to serve for the first set, possibly to make it 6-4. But then she actually collapsed herself and then actually ended up losing the next few games. She lost that first set, didn't she? 7-5. And yeah,
And this isn't ideal either, is it? Because obviously losing a first set is nothing really alarming for Zhang. She quite regularly does it, and then sort of storms back. But it's an evening match, and you've got the next. If you do get through, you've got the next round the next day.
Yeah, but yeah, obviously, yeah, that's not ideal, is it? And yeah, it was interesting, but I mean, I felt like she had started to play well, which is, I mean, like quite impressive tennis as well, which is maybe so disappointing for her to end up losing that. But then, yeah, of course, she actually came back in that second set and was dominating Andreeva to get the bagel. And yeah, obviously she's become comfortable, and she was turning it on for the home crowd. Mirra Andreeva, apparently that was the first bagel she's had since she's been on the tour. On the
Oh,
main
really?
tour, obviously she's not been on too long. Yeah, I believe so. And actually, she started. She was actually in tears afterwards, even at the start of the third set. Andreeva, yeah, obviously wasn't going well for her. But in that final set, it was rather, I mean, just like the match, really, it was rather a bit of a roller coaster because we had two boomerang breaks. I mean, with Andreeva going up a break and then Zheng bouncing back. And then, eventually it was 4-all and Zheng was able to break through and take the final set 6-4. And yeah, it was overall, it was it was actually quite a, it was an interesting match to watch in terms, and obviously the Andreeva herself is a very good ball striker, and Zhang has a bit more perhaps outright power, and yeah, it was a definitely an interesting match, fun match to watch. But Zhang felt though, as she gets used to playing more of these matches in the big occasions, I think she'll be wanting to stamp out, sort of because obviously it wasn't a great start, right? And possibly she could have taken that first set anyway.
Cold, going 4 down.
And perhaps that's just something that's going to come. She's just gradually getting more experience at this level. And then she went through, and of course, she still had a tough match. She was lucky in a sense in that she didn't have to face Aryna Sabalenka, who is obviously, she's superb tennis player, but still she had to play Karolina Muchova, who is has been excellent of late. I mean, she just reached the semi-finals at the US Open, and she's been as high as 8 in the world, and certainly it seems like she's showing that form again. And Muchova is when she's in full flow, she's a really difficult player to face in terms of she hits the ball well, but she's quite maybe unpredictable as well in the way that she hits the ball and take you by surprise with the angles as well that she can get on the court. And I think it was just Qinwen just wasn't at the level she needed to be. So it was a bit disappointing, for sure, for the the Beijing crowd. They were really hoping to be able to get to see Qinwen in the final. I mean, she would have been playing Coco Gauff, and certainly that would have been quite an exciting match to see the local star against her. Coco did actually go on to win the title, so that was a great week, great couple of weeks for Coco. But
I think the final was equally one-sided as the semi.
It's disappointing. As that semi between Zheng and Karolina. But for Zheng though, you have to look at it as a positive in the sense that I think this was the first time she'd reached the semi at a 1,000 level event. So it was, right. So previously she'd only been as far as the quarters. Obviously, having won an Olympic gold medal and been in the final of a slam, she has higher expectations probably on herself, right? But I mean, now she'll go into Wuhan, which is the next 1,000 this week. It's only 1 week long, but still worth just as many points. So she's got chances to do well this week. So all eyes will be on that for sure.
Yeah, she gets a bye into the second round, doesn't she? She's the fifth seed in Wuhan. Obviously, she should have that bye revoked after the disastrous performance. But maybe, given what you've just said, we'll downgrade that one from a disaster to just a mild disappointment, perhaps. We'll talk about Wuhan a little bit later. We'll shift across to the ATP now, the Shanghai Masters. And after his breakout performance in Beijing, hopes on the pod last week were extremely high for Bu Yun Chao-Keti heading into the Shanghai Masters. On a roll, we said Chinese number one in waiting. I think we hinted. But of course, it is tennis. It is brutal. 1 week a world beater, next week the proverbial panel beater. And the panel beater this time was Bu. In the first round in Shanghai, he ran into a fellow up-and-comer, Alex Michelsen, who, let's be fair, is one of the most exciting young players around. And it didn't go well for Bu.
Yeah, ended up losing in straight sets. I mean, it wasn't a complete rout, but it was 6-3, 6-4. Definitely, it was a deserved win for his American opponent, the 20-year-old Alex Michelsen. Yeah, and always, to be honest, on this kind of, especially on a quick hard court, that's nice for Alex Michelsen, 6'4" player that is definitely on the rise. And himself, Michelsen, he actually got through and played against Novak Djokovic in the second round and took him to 2 tiebreaks. So very good showing there from him, which tells you the kind of level of tennis that he's coming into right now. And for Bu, I mean, I guess after having had such a good couple of weeks, it's not that unusual, really, is it? And often expected that after a player has a big bit of success, sometimes there can be a bit of a hangover in that first round. I mean, a bit. I suppose it's maybe not too bad for him to have a little break here. If I'm looking at it positively, I believe that he will go on to play in Almaty ATP 250. Right. So another tournament this time though outside of his home country. But we'll be watching to see how he does now, because now he's in with the big boys now on the ATP tour, and it's going to be interesting to see how, if he can maintain some sort of level. I don't think he's going to get any more tournaments. I doubt he's going to step down to the challenger level much at the moment. I mean, I think he's going to try to do as well as he can in some of these. You may as well try, right, at some of these bigger events, given that he's already managed to beat guys like Rublev, Musetti, etc. So, obviously disappointing from that perspective. But there was another Chinese player who did have a bit more success
It
this
wasn't
week
all doom and
in this
gloom
tournament.
in Shanghai, was it? When we spoke the other night, I think Wu Yibing, he'd just beaten Sumit Nagal in a Tennis Asia Bowl first round. He then went on to play Nicholas Jarry.
That is correct, and he played Nicholas Jarry, who is from Chile, the 25th seed, of course. An experienced player at this level, and for Wu to take him out 6-2, 6-1 was very impressive. Now, in recent months, I mean, obviously we know that Wu has had good success, and last year he was the first Chinese man to win an ATP title, and he did it in some style as well, because he took out Taylor Fritz and John Isner in that title, the title win in Dallas. Yeah, and it was very impressive showing from him. Unfortunately, we know that he had injury issues, and he was spent a long time this season out, and has come back. He did win a challenger back earlier this year in August. So yeah, there were signs were there, but I was a bit wary to get too excited about his comeback, because obviously in Hangzhou, he was almost in tears, I think, when he had to retire. I think it was a back issue. He had to retire against Coleman Wong. Yeah, but for him to actually get a couple of wins under his belt here, and not only that, he looked incredible against Jarry. I mean, there was one shot that he hit, like a super hard forehand, sort of counter punching winner, that just left Jarry even just laughing, because it was so ridiculous how good it was, right? And yeah, he clearly took that confidence into the next match against Carlos Alcaraz. Obviously,
nice
in a
easy
massive mountain to climb. But yeah, he made it.
He played well, didn't he?
An incredible match. I mean, the point of the match is, as the commentator said, it was probably the best first point of a match you'll see, at least, this year. Incredible stuff. And then he was going toe to toe with Carlos Alcaraz, and there were moments where he was coming up with really quite spectacular shots that, burning Alcaraz, which, I don't think Alcaraz, and even by Alcaraz's own admission, he wasn't used to feeling like that. He said, I can actually got the quote here. He says, Alcaraz said if he keeps playing at this level, I'm pretty sure I'm going to see him around more often. I'm just really happy to get through. I don't want to say I was surprised, but it was the first time I was playing against him. He just beat Jarry very easily, so that's impressive. And I had to be focused on my best. I'm not used to the feelings I had on the court. He is a really powerful player, plays really strong. So I felt like I was not dominating the game. Yeah, so obviously, if you're going to make Carlos Alcaraz feel like that, you've done something pretty good. Certainly in terms of the weapons, in a way you could say he's got similar attributes to Alcaraz. Maybe doesn't quite have the, let's say, maybe quite the movement and the speed that Alcaraz does. Especially he moves ridiculously well. But you can't say that he's bad in that aspect. But yeah, obviously when it came down to the key moment in that first tiebreak, Alcaraz stepped up and took it. And I think there was one point, just maybe 1 or 2 points before that, where Wu really had chance to take it, and actually, I think he went cross court with it. I think there was the ball that just dropped over the net from Alcaraz, and he really could have just poked up the line, and he probably would have won that point, and then it probably would have won the first set there. Well, it was more likely then, but Alcaraz ended up winning that, and little things like that. I mean, that's what makes the difference between such. Even when you play a match like so well, you've got to have make every decision right against a player like Alcaraz. And yeah, the second set went 6-3, so Alcaraz got the break. So Alcaraz was only able to break him once in the match, but still it was a good set, but clearly Alcaraz just a bit too good for Wu on the day. But it certainly bodes well if Wu can actually maintain his good health, and he can go much higher in the rankings. So it would be really exciting if we happen to get Wu, Bu, and Shang, rising through the rankings next season. Certainly, and probably they'll all be in competition with each other, willing each other on, and that's often how things work out. You get a bunch of players from one country start to push each other on, and that's just hope he can stay fit, because obviously
spurring each other on and probably willing each other to actually lose, but that's usually how it works in the top level sport. I do want to briefly mention another player from this part of the world who had or is actually still having a positive experience. Yosuke Watanuki. Obviously, he dropped. He missed a good deal of tennis. He used a protected ranking to get into the Shanghai qualies. He actually eliminated Hong Sok Chan along the way, and he's gone on a bit of a tear since getting through to the main draw.
Yeah, good for you to mention him. Yeah, so Yosuke Watanuki, he pretty exciting player from Japan that was also at a career high ranking, about 70 odd in the world early this year, and then I think he had another injury that kept him out for. Sorry, he reached the career high ranking of 72 at the end of last year, 72, about a year ago, in 30th of October, and then the start of this year he had to stop playing due to injury. But then he came back a couple of months ago, and now he started to pick up the results, qualifying here, and then getting the victory from behind against Pavel Kotov from Russia, and then in the second round taking out a guy who's been in very good form and plays well on this surface, but is Brandon Nakashima from America. He came through that 7-6, 6-3, and he'll go on to play Taylor Fritz, the 7th seed, in the third round. And that's going to be an interesting battle, because clearly Watanuki likes these conditions, the quick conditions, and obviously it's a step up in terms of quality, having to play a consistent top 10 player like Taylor Fritz. But it will be, I don't think it's going to be an easy one for Fritz, so definitely I'll be watching out to see how that goes. For Fritz, for Watanuki, I mean, that's him now 4 matches won on consecutively, if you could include the qualifying matches, right? So obviously that is pretty good form, and then
good ranking wise as well, if he's going to get into more tournaments without using the protected ranking.
Yeah, that's right. So unfortunate for him, because he had the protected ranking. He's able to use it, but it was much lower than the one that he would probably like to use. The more that he can build his ranking just from these few tournaments that he gets into, absolutely the better. And on that tournament as well, just while we were on it, I mean, this is ongoing, as you know. It's not going to finish until the end of this week, right? But also in that tournament of interest, so we had obviously Kei Nishikori, right? In the tournament, he did come through against Mario Navoni. We talked about on the last podcast, right? And obviously it was a difficult match. And he just quite couldn't get over the line against Tsitsipas, because in that second round he took it to a tiebreak in that first set, and he had his chances for sure. But it was Tsitsipas who came out on top this time. It was Tsitsipas getting revenge because Nishikori actually won against him in straight sets in the last match they played in Canada. Yeah, so there was that happening.
So yeah,
And
okay. So we said it was okay. I introduced this by being a disastrous week. Okay, it hasn't been that bad, has it?
well, I mean, yeah, for Zhang to get semi-finals, yeah, that's still a pretty good result. And for Wu, I mean, to put up, I mean, it would have been incredible week then if he'd actually managed to beat Alcaraz. I
Yeah.
mean, but for him to put up a good showing against Alcaraz, yeah, that's obviously pretty good. And yeah, I guess you could say of it. I mean, Shang as well. We've talked about Jerry Shang. Yeah, he came through against Coleman Wong, but then lost out to Alcaraz 6-2, 6-2. Yeah, that was a bit of a disappointment as well.
Yeah.
But I think, yeah, with Alcaraz is playing as well as he is now, it would need Shang maybe doesn't quite have the firepower at the moment to trouble him, like the consistency of firepower that Wu does. And yeah, that's a bit of the difference there. And yeah,
Okay,
that's it.
let's change gear. Let's zip across the world to deepest Southern California and to the Rancho Santa Fe Women's 75. I'm just guessing it's deepest Southern California. It sounds it. But we were eyeing up a potential Tennis Asia Bowl final between two of the early podcast episode stalwarts, Ina Shibahara and Lana Terra-Rudi. After both of them reached opposing semi-finals. It was not quite to be, though, with Terra-Rudi being the first to let us down, losing in straights to that fascinating young 16-year-old American talent, Iva Jović.
Yeah, right. So that is on the ITF circuit. It's a 75K in the US, yeah, Rancho Santa Fe, California. And yeah, it was Lanlana Tararudi. She managed to get through to the semi-finals, but ended up losing out to yeah, Jovic in straight sets. It was 6-1, 7-5, Iva Jovic. She's a 16-year-old Jovic from America who is obviously got some special talent. I mean, she's already just won at the 35K just before this, and then she also got a wild card into the US Open and beat Magdalena in the first round, and
She
then
didn't
lost
just
out to Alec.
she didn't just get the wild card either, did she? She was one of those where she earned the wild card, I think, by winning the US uh, under 18 championships, despite only being
Ah, right,
16,
right, right,
16 herself.
right. Yeah, so really, I mean, yeah, impressive. I mean, anyway, to get into the US Open and
Yeah.
then win against Magdalena, or an experienced player like that in straight sets, and then to take a very high level player like Alexandrova to three sets. So, yeah, I mean, you can only say that this is a exceptional level, even for a 16-year-old. But Lanlana Rararudi of Thailand, she's only 20 herself, but good showing, I suppose, for her to get to the semis in the 75K. But it was Ina Shibahara, who we've also talked about before on the podcast of Japan, primarily a doubles player, but has chose to focus on the singles this year. I mean, it's still a respectable result for her to be able to get to the final here. Yeah,
Right.
she came through all of her matches in straight sets pretty comfortably, but then, of course, she ran into Iva Jovic, ended up losing 6-3, 6-3 in that final. But, I mean, particularly for Shibahara, she just continues to impress. I mean, she started the year outside the top 500, and now she's up to a career high 143. Yeah, so that's, I mean, what can you say?
Right.
She won't be getting too far, if she continues in this way. from the top 100. And then if she does manage to get there, then of course she can get into the slams automatically. And she's already obviously qualified at the US Open and even won a first round match, which is of course has contributed to her ranking and success this year. So I'm not sure where she's going to play next at the moment for Shibahara. I know that Taro Daniel is actually on the entry list for another ITF this week in the US. I think it's in Edmond, in somewhere in Oklahoma in the US. Perhaps a chance
for her
one
time. Got to go around the US following an ITF swing at some point. That would be something to do. The WTA itself, the main tour moves on to Wuhan. Obviously, as you mentioned, it's another 1,000, but this time played over just the week. The round of 64 is well underway. Sabalenka is the top seed. As we mentioned, Zheng Qinwen is the number 5 seed. They've both got buys to the second round. I did see Sabalenka could play Alex Ayala actually in the second round. That would be something. But one first round match that does catch the eye. We haven't talked about her for a couple of episodes, which is something we need to rectify. Moyuka, the machine, Uchijima. She's back winning again. She's come through qualifying, and she faces the Qinwen conqueror Karolina Muchova in the round of 64. Could Muchova perhaps have a bit of a hangover from this week's exploits?
I mean, yeah, it was obviously great for Moyuka to get through those qualifying rounds. She came through against a local wild card, Gao Jinyu, in straight sets, and then against Olivia Gadecki, also in straight sets. But yeah, to be drawn against Muchova is a bit of a stinker first round. I mean, out of all the unseeded players, you don't want the one that's actually, probably shouldn't be unseeded, right?
The definition of the dangerous floater.
Yeah, maybe she's going to hope that the one thing I think I would say that might, I don't know if that really helps her, because I think Muchova is capable of handling that, but obviously the change in conditions from Beijing to Wuhan. I know that in the past Wuhan was one of the quickest courts on the whole tour, whereas I know that Beijing's sort of a more medium pace hard court, although I'm not sure that necessarily benefits Uchijima. But what I mean, like overall with
we know
game
Uchijima
style,
can play on anything, so
yeah, but that's true. No, but obviously she's come through qualifying, so she has got used to the conditions and done pretty well. So that's something that will count somewhat in her favour, but definitely a very tough first round. If she won that would be tremendous. But we'll see how she does. And another player that caught my eyes who got a wild card into the draw is someone that we've talked about a lot, is 19-year-old Alex Ayala from the Philippines.
Yeah.
Also drawn against a Czech player in Siniakova. Pretty tough first round, but
she's got an easy second round if she gets through that.
Yeah, so Alex Ayala, if she does manage to get through, which is it's going to be a good test for her. If she does get through that, it's still a decent result, but not completely out of reach. And then if she gets through, she has to play Aryna Sabalenka, the number 1 seed. So probably not going to get past that one, if I'm being honest, but we'll see how it goes.
No, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, in that little section, we've got Zhang Shui in that little section.
Right.
She's using her protected ranking to get in. Of course, she finally broke that 24-match losing streak in the last tournament and got all the way to the quarterfinals in Beijing. So it'll be interesting to see if she can carry that over, maybe continue, another run of wins. But it's going to be difficult because she starts off in Wuhan against Yulia Putintseva. Zhang herself is a good ball striker, but Putintseva is obviously very tough first round. So I mean, I think if she loses that, even it might not necessarily even be too much shame if depending on how Putintseva plays. Also in that section, you've got Mai Hontama, who qualified against, she will be playing Magdalena Frech for the opportunity to play Emma Navarro in the second round.
One thing that caught my eye was my sweetheart from Seoul, Yuan Yue. She's already through to the second round. She's got a very she actually came from a set down to beat Burrell, but she's got a tough match as well. She's got Jasmine Paolini, the third seed in the second round.
Yeah, interesting little battle there because I say quite a bit of a it's a bit of a contrast of styles there. Paolini, by the
Mm,
way, is actually, I should mention, she's just coming off her winning the doubles title with Irani in Beijing. So
mm.
she comes in with good feelings, although she went out in the second round to Magda Linette in straight sets in that tournament. Yeah, but getting the doubles title, that's pretty good. Yeah, but yeah, of course, Paolini, yeah, she's tricky player, got the wheels on her, and she works hard, and she's had a great year this year. Of course, Yuan Yue is, she's a bit bigger, and she's got quite powerful, good clean hitting, good ground strokes. So, yeah, interesting one that perhaps one could get the win here with the home crowd on her side. I see that Wang Jiu got a wild
Mm.
card, and she's drawn against Mirra Andreeva. Obviously, very tough. And if she does lose that one, actually, it's Mirra Andreeva would go on to play her sister, Andreeva.
Andreeva, who beat Yastremski today. Yes, plenty to watch out. And anything else catching the eye in the draw in
Well,
Wuhan?
I mean, I suppose I would say what catches my eye is Zheng Qinwen, who is there as the
Mm,
fifth seed, and
yeah,
I mean, it's not the easiest little first couple of matches for her because she first one should be okay. She played either Osorio or Jacqueline Christian, but then potentially in the third round she's either got Mukova or Leila Fernandez.
Fernandez or Ichijima.
Yep, of course, and then potentially in the quarterfinals Mira Andreeva. So
Yeah,
Zhang would be hoping to go on a good run here and obviously try and win it, but it's certainly not the easiest draw for her. You've got to say, but of course, this is her time really to sort of try and prove herself, and that's really what everyone would be hoping to see. She's certainly got the tools to be able to get through these players, even if it's not the the best draw. And then what I would say maybe counts in her favour, she doesn't have Sabalenka in her half
right.
of the draw or Coco Gauff. Um, I think that the highest seed in her half is Jessica Pegula, who of course is obviously a great player and will enjoy these conditions, but it's certainly from that point of view, being able to avoid Sabalenka Gauff is not too bad. But yeah, I guess you just got to take each game as it comes, and you never know, the draw could fall apart. Yeah, Uchijima could take out Mikova, so you never know.
For the top men, of course, this week Shanghai continues, but the Hangzhou Challenger is also taking place this week. James Duckworth is the top seed. Obviously, there's a lot of Chinese interests in this, but is there anything in particular in the Hangzhou draw that we should be looking out for?
Ah, yes, challengers. Remember challengers? The ATP
Yeah,
Challenger circuit. Yeah. Um, well, I mean, clearly one of the ties of the first round is James Duckworth against Yasutaka Uchiyama.
mm,
James Duckworth is the number one seed. Uchiyama is unseeded, but Uchiyama loves the quicker conditions, which they do have in Hangzhou. And although Duckworth quite likes that as well, Duckworth is a guy that's sort of, for a while, he's always sort of between the Challenger and the ATP Tour level,
right.
and he has some success, and maybe ends up dropping down for a bit to Challengers and then goes back up. So he's dropped down at the moment, and he's obviously looking for a run of games. But to draw Uchiyama in the first round, not easy at all.
Not ideal.
Um,
No.
yeah, and Uchiyama is a guy who also just had a great run in Hangzhou in the ATP 250 event just a couple of weeks ago. So um, yeah, so for Duckworth, very difficult first round there. And if Uchiyama can actually get through that, that's potentially, he could go far because, yeah, I don't see. Well, I mean, there's difficult players in there like Walton, but he's certainly got a chance to go far. So that's going to be one that's going to be interesting. And if I remember correctly, it was Uchiyama that. Yeah, he won in Busan, didn't he? Back
Right.
in, and he actually took out James Duckworth in that match where
Right.
Duckworth was extremely um, angry at
He
some of
wasn't
the
the happiest, was
decisions.
he? No.
No, he was. Well, he was having an existential crisis, I would say.
Yes.
But this is like, yeah, and of course that Chiama went on to beat Hong in the final and take the title. Then, so yeah, he performs well when he's playing in this part of the world, which is as you might expect. Chiama, and it's definitely a potential there for a first round upset. I don't know if you can really call it an upset. I mean, I'd see them almost sort of a similar sort of level, really. But yeah, that's definitely a good, well, an interesting thing that caught my eye as well in this Hangzhou Challenger is that Fabio Fognini has a wild card and is the third
Right.
seed. Yeah, it's a guy that's obviously been as high as top 10 in the world and has
Mm.
had tremendous results, but he hasn't been a winner. He hasn't won a tournament at the ATP level since I think in 5 years or so. The last one that he did
Right.
win was a Masters title with Clay, but he's won. Oh, to be fair, he's had some success on doubles at ATP level, but he's back on the challengers, and he's had most of his success on the clay. Although he did
Right.
get a win in Wimbledon this year against Casper Ruud, but that's obviously Casper Ruud at Wimbledon, which is very different from anywhere else.
Yeah.
So I think for him for Nini, he's obviously trying to rack up some
Re
points. Maybe that he sees it's
rebuild
being a bit
rebuild
easier,
a
but
ranking.
it's
Yeah.
never quite works out like that. I mean, he's lucky in the sense that he'll have to play a qualifier first round, but then he could play a local player, Shui Jie. You remember we talked about him before? He
We
sort of
did. Yeah.
stepped up, didn't he, from the lower levels and surprised a bit. So yeah, he's in there with a wild card, and also another wild card for Chinese player Rigeli Tay. He's been around for a while. We've got Jason Sheng of Taiwan. He is the 8th seed. And who else is in there? We've also got Shu from Taiwan, Shu Yushou, who we've also talked a bit about before in the podcast, but he's got a difficult first round against Mackenzie McDonald,
Mm.
who was a finalist in non-Fabry in Bangkok recently. So in terms of, if you want to know what the players, Asian players that I see as having good prospects in this, certainly it's got to be Uchiyama. But obviously
Right.
that first round could go either way, I would say. But he's got a good chance. If you can get past that, I'd say he's got a good run at going for the title. On the other side, perhaps you've got Yevseyev actually of Kazakhstan there as well. But perhaps on that side, perhaps Shu, if he can get past McDonald, then certainly that's not going to be easy at all. But perhaps he can go on a little run. But certainly Uchiyama is one to watch out, I would say. And if you happen to click onto Challenger TV, if you have time, I definitely recommend watching that one, Uchiyama Duckworth.
Well, we will, so long as it's not clashing with Toshi Matsui, who is playing in the doubles.
Toshihide Matsui, of course. I mean, I didn't even look at the the doubles draw actually, but yeah, he's back playing, is he? And is he back with?
He's
Oh, he's
playing
playing
with,
with
yeah,
Ramanathan
Ramanathan of India.
of India. Ramanathan, yeah, of course, experienced player, and he is playing in the singles as well.
Right.
Um, yeah, that's
Yeah,
potentially fruitful
they lost in the
partnership.
semi-finals in Nonthaburi last week, so they have
Mm-hmm.
been playing together for a few tournaments now.
Yeah, if there's an all Indian pairing there as well, Bolly Pali and Kade. Yeah, they've been playing around for a while in these Asian challengers, and Alcantara of the Philippines, one of the few Filipino pros on the ATP circuit, and then he's teamed up with Yu Shou of Taiwan, who has got quite a bit of doubles experience and has had some good results in the doubles. So he's even won challenger titles. So yeah, some interest there in the
Feels
doubles
like the
too.
very early days of this podcast, going back to talking about real tennis. Just turning to the thing, a completely different subject to round this off. What was Taro Daniel doing in Seoul today?
Yeah, we just saw that. Obviously, we're living in Seoul in Korea, but just saw on his Instagram story. I don't know. He was having a bit of a time in Seoul. It seems that he said 18 hours stopover in Seoul. I guess he's having a bite to eat. I don't know if his girlfriend's maybe wanting to get some skincare products or something, but he's on the way.
Few hours in Olive Young, yeah.
Seemingly to, I'm assuming he's on the way to the next ATP 250 event, which is on next week in Almaty, Kazakhstan. I think he'll have to play the qualifying. So
Right.
that will be on starting this probably Saturday, right? Yeah, so I mean, a bit early maybe to look out ahead to that, but that's going to have quite a few players of Asian interest playing in it. I mean, if we want to talk about the qualifying, I mean, believe it or not, you've got Boo Yunxiaoketi in the qualifying there.
Right.
You know, normally, because the cut-offs come earlier, a few weeks before, clearly now that Boo's ranked as high as 69 in the world, which would normally be just good enough to get directly into the main draw of an event like this, it looks like he's going to have to play qualifying unless the organizers do him a favor and give him a wild card. I think there's only one available at the moment that's not been announced because he's got
Right.
the two that have already been awarded is to Timofey Skatov and Babit Zhukayev, who are of course from Kazakhstan. Yeah, so Taro Daniel's.
I was getting very sort of annoyed on Korea's behalf. I was thinking Kazakhstan now. We don't have a single ATP event, and Kazakhstan has two. But I was wrong. Almaty used to be Astana. It's the same. It's the same tournament. It's just been moved to a different location. But it's indoor and yeah, it looks like
Mhm.
if Boo's going through qualifiers, should be plenty of big names.
Yeah, so Taro Daniel is in qualies, as is Mikhail Kukushkin, who is from Kazakhstan. I'm surprised he's not been given a wild card, but maybe he will get it when it's in. And you've got Aslan Karatsev there in the qualies, Jason Sheng and Uchiyama, who we just talked about. Obviously, perhaps some of these guys might pull out depending on their progress in Hangzhou. And then, Benjamin Hassan, who represents Lebanon. And you've got the 16-year-old getting a wild card there into Almaty. Amir Omarkanov, he's one of the
Mm,
top juniors at the moment. A lot of excitement, I think. Especially for those who are fans of Kazakh tennis, because he definitely seems like a homegrown player that's got a lot of success, potential, I should say. Just one off the qualifying, he probably sneak into qualifying, is Kumoyun Sultanov of Uzbekistan, who, yeah, so Dan Evans is there in the qualifying. So a lot of guys are really trying to get their rankings back up playing here. And then if you want to talk about the main draw, you got the top seeds: Francis Tiafoe, Korda, Arthur Fils, Alejandro
mm.
Tabilo, Karen Kashanov, Alexander Bublik, of course, represents Kazakhstan, Flavio Caboli, and Tomasz Makac. And then Triple Z is there as well in that list, as is James Duckworth. And last but not least, I'll mention Coleman Wong, who gets into the main draw in Almaty because he gets a special spot. It's like for a next gen spot as as a next gen player who's, I think, in the top 250. He's ranked, I think, 128 at the moment. But he's using that special spot that they now have for next gen players to get into an ATP 250. So be interesting to see if he can get a couple wins under his belt. Obviously, we talked before that he needs to try and get into the next gen finals.
Right.
Just a couple of wins here would
And of course,
be
it's an
very.
indoor tournament as well, which the next gen finals will be as well.
Yeah, that's true, and Probably, yeah. It's the kind of conditions that he should like. So, yeah, that's obviously coming next week. But yeah, the qualifiers before potentially Boo playing there, it's something we'll be keeping an eye on.
Tennis never stops, as we say. We said we were going to knock this one out. This is a sort of an interim one. We'd knock this one out in 25, 30 minutes. It's gone 46, so we better wrap up. So this week you'll be watching Shanghai. Shanghai, I guess we have to watch the end, even though there's no real Tennis Asia interest. Zhao, Wuhan, gearing up for Almaty. Tennis never stops.
Yeah, it doesn't. All right.
But we
See you
shall.
later.
Thank you very much for joining me as ever, and we'll speak soon.
Bye bye.
4-6, 7-6.